Thank God you're here. I've been running away from this clown for hours now. Look, I don't know how much I have left in me, but there is something you can do to help me. If you watch this whole video, I might have enough time to run away from the creature. Thank you so much. This means everything to me. I must go. Goodbye. This thing in the background, by the way, doesn't have anything to do with the video. Mayhem Mountain by C.K. Walker, also known as Rebecca Klingel. So, to those of you who do not know, Rebecca is a horror author who's been working for a while, almost 10 years I believe, on horror stories online. Rebecca also happens to be that good of a writer that she got a job with Mike Flanagan, who's made Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, Midnight Mass, and The Fall of the House of Usher. Rebecca wrote the third last episode of the series, Witness Marks, which is one of my personal favorite stories that I've seen in that show. The reason I chose Mayhem Mountain, by the way, is because Rebecca Klingel herself said online at one point that this is her perhaps favorite story that she has written from her own perspective, which is a pretty wild thing to say because she has written also Borrasca, which I consider one of the best online horror stories ever written. Let's see how this will work out. And thank you for everyone for being a part of the first episode of Nachorror. In 2 miles, take exit 19 for Valley Park Drive South, Siri chirped from my sister's phone. Charlotte, turn that off. I know where I'm going. You sure about that? I mean, it has been a couple decades, Mark. Please, like I could ever forget where Adventure Valley is. Come on, we spent every summer of... There it is! I swerved briefly into the oncoming lane as Charlotte thrust her arm in front of my face to point excitedly out of the window. There's Adventure Valley! Oh my god, what ride is that? That coaster, it was called Steel something, right? No, wait! That's Mayhem Mountain, isn't it? I gently pushed my sister's arm out of my face and back over to her seat. I couldn't fault her for her excitement while I was trying so hard to control my own giddiness. It felt like we were kids again, yelling and bouncing in the back seat of my parents' car as the first shining rails and wooden planks of the park's roller coasters came into the view above the treetops. That's the Steel Viper, I told her. Mayhem Mountain's on the other end of the park, and that wooden coaster over there is the Excalibur. Oh yeah, I remember those. I was always too much of a wuss to ride the Viper, but I rode the shit out of the Excalibur. Well, Charlotte, you're an adult now. I think it's time to take on the Viper. As long as the contractors have tested it and given it the okay, I'm in. That was really the question, wasn't it? We didn't know which rides had been inspected and cleared and which ones hadn't. I sent up a silent prayer that Mayhem Mountain was counted among the rides that had. I'd left Brandon several voicemails asking about it, since he was the one in charge of everything. But with how fast things had been moving since we'd bought the park, I couldn't fault him for being a busy man. If you told 12-year-old me that my crazy, hyper, wild-eyed friend Brandon Decker would end up graduating cum laude from Northwestern Business School, I would have laughed in your face. Brandon? No way. Tyler maybe, but never Brandon. In fact, half the reason I think he chose a business designation was because of Adventure Valley. When the park had closed in 1989, Brandon had gathered us all together in his basement, and with a gravitas and solemnness I've never seen him before or since, asked us to make the pact. The pact. Alrighty. At the time, the promise had been the most serious vow that 5 12-year-olds could ever make. High off of an entire summer of Adventure Valley fun, we agreed with all the ceremony of a meeting of Parliament that we would one day come together and buy Adventure Valley amusement park. Of course, back then we'd planned to just buy it and ride the roller coasters into the ground. We decided which friends from school we would let in and which enemies would be barred from the gates. It had always been our park, and it was only right that we should have it. It's... Okay, I already want to take a short break, just to mention, I really enjoy the way Rebecca writes about children. It's a very, it gives me those, kind of like It vibes, you know? But don't worry, it will most likely get darker. If anyone has read Borrasca, they know how, she's very good at writing stories from like very small children to teenagers to adults, just like stories. Kind of like an escalation from an age forward. I believe that Mayhem Mountain was written before Borrasca, but I'm not sure about that. It had taken 20 years, but we eventually did fulfill our journey. Oh, Jesus, why did I say that? Our promise. With a hell of a lot pushing from Brandon and a sizable offer of collateral from Tyler, the bank had agreed to give us the multi-million-dollar loan to buy, repair, refurbish, and reopen the park. The size of the loan that the 6 of us were responsible for gave me nightmares for several weeks. How would this place ever turn into a profit? It had been closed decades ago after operating in the red for several years. The county had experienced a high number of runaways and missing persons in the area in the last years of the 1980s. The entire region was on edge as the cases mounted and people in the area became depressed and suspicious of each other. It had absolutely killed park attendance. But seeing the first cresting waves of roller coaster rails through the trees made me all but forget about my financial worries. This was Adventure Valley, for Christ's sake. If we opened the gates, people would come. There, that's our exit, Charlotte squeaked. I pulled off the interstate and took a left under the bridge. Less than a mile later, we came upon the acres of the park's parking lots to our right. We turned in and drove all the way up to the front, near the gates where several other cars were parked. A Lexus, a Mini Cooper, an old Chevelle, and a Honda Civic, another rental car like ours. Looks like we're the last ones here, Charlotte said. She was right. As we pulled up next to the Lexus, I noticed a group of people standing next to the ticket booth, waving to us excitedly. Oh my god, is that Tyler? Jesus, he's lost some weight. He's so skinny now. And Brandon's losing his hair. Holy shit, is that Koji? Koji's got heart. Calm down, Paris Hilton. These guys are my friends. They're off limits for you. Same rules as when we were teenagers. Besides, half of them are married. Really? Which half? Oh boy. Oh boy. I raised an eyebrow at Charlotte and shook my head in amused bewilderment. My little sister never had outgrown her boy craziness. Wait, who's that? Charlotte asked as we got out of the car. What? That's Scott, you know Scott. Not Scott. Scott looks exactly the same, the girl next to Scott. Oh. I had put this off so long that I'd actually forgotten to tell my sister at all. That's Danny, Scott's girlfriend. Danny as in Daniel Bircher? Well, yeah. My sister gave me such a horrified look that you'd think I'd betrayed her to her death, but it was fleeting and quickly replaced by a sly smile. Fine by me, I'm sure she's not the same person she was in high school. We're all adults now, right? Now come on, let's go. A sigh of relief escaped my chest as I slammed the car door and followed Charlotte over to the entrance. Though I saw most of the guys every year, seeing us all here together, standing in the ticket booths of Adventure Valley, brought me a sort of happiness I hadn't experienced in many years. Mark fucking Lantis, I can't believe it! Tyler had an edgy, commanding voice that probably made his many employers shudder and scatter, but I knew him like a brother, so his bravado just made me laugh. And I will fail miserably at doing the same voice for all the characters. I will most likely change them up, and that's gonna be a mess. But that's gonna... We're gonna survive through this together. Can you believe it? I asked as I gave him a hug and a slap on the back. Back at front gate. $15 a day doesn't seem so ridiculous now. Pfft, 15 a day, my ass, Brandon said as he shook my hand. By my math, it looks like we'll be charging about 65 a day. I'll pay it, Charlotte smiled as she gave Koji a hug. Are people really going to pay $65 a day? Koji asked. Even Disneyland only charges $85, and there you get access to 2 parks. How could I forget? Brandon shook his head. One of our investors works for the mouse. Pity they won't let you design any artwork for this place. Come on, man, I'm not an artist, I'm an engineer. Don't you mean Imagineer? Charlotte winked at him. Man, Charlotte is a jokester, isn't she? Koji sighed and shook his head. Yeah, I fucking do. As Brandon and Charlotte teased Koji, I made my way over to the side of the ticket booth where Scott and his girlfriend were conversing. I didn't know why Scott was being so standoffish, but I thought it might have something to do with the investments. Scott, the least well of us six, worked at his dad's collision shop and hadn't had a whole lot of money to invest. I thought maybe he was embarrassed about the money, but now, watching him lean against the booth with slowly shifting eyes, I realized it wasn't that at all. Scott was just stoned. Same old Scott. Hell yeah. How do you guys feel about introducing a story with characters this much? I don't have an issue with it at all, personally. I think it's a good thing to intro a story like this. Also a good thing to remember that this was originally written in Reddit format, so not in the way that we are currently reading it. What's up, Burnout? My brother, I haven't seen you in like 15 years. How about a bro hug? Scott smiled and pushed off the wall to come give me a quick hug. Hey, how's it going, man? Fuck, look at you. What's your diet, man? Rabbit food and lettuce? You're not gonna get any ladies with a skinny body. Your mom doesn't seem to mind? Oh, damn. Holy shit, the people are 15. They have cars, but they're 15. Hey, Mark. I'm Danny. Do you remember me? Danny Bircher? Scott's girlfriend gave me a shy smile and stuck out her hand so we could engage in a stiff handshake. Yeah, I think so. You were in my sister's class, right? Charlotte Lantis? Danny had the decency to look embarrassed. Yeah, but we weren't really friends. That's putting it lightly, I thought. We were freshmen when you guys were seniors, she added. Yep, I do remember that. Maybe I should just get it over with. I called Charlotte over, and the reintroduction of the two girls, while awkward, was over pretty quickly to everyone's relief. We were all eager to get into the park. It was odd not stopping at the window for tickets and even odder to walk around the rusting turnstiles of the front gates. I delighted in reminding myself that we owned this place now. I can see a bit of resemblance with Flanagan's style of writing characters. Yeah, I think so too, yeah. Yeah, this was written, by the way, in 2016, so the story was, what is it, 2 years before Hill House, I believe? Maybe 1 year? Maybe 1 year. Rebecca Klingel only wrote 1 episode for that one, but later she's been working more, like, for instance, The Fall of the House of Usher. So there's definitely, there's most likely going to be some sort of a effect there from her. Brandon gave us a tour of the park. Now so much of the geography, we all knew that inside and out. But not so much, oh sorry, that's a miswrite, that's just a mistake in the text. Not so much of the geography, we all knew that inside and out, but of the hypothetical layout and reorganizing of the park as he saw it. The Excalibur is going to need the most amount of work, according to Rich, Brandon's head contractor. A roller coaster made of wood exposed to the elements for all these years will keep as much of the original structure as is safe, but we might have to rebuild most of it. Do we have the money for that? Scott asked loudly from where he walked behind us with Danny. Scott was the poor one, right? Or the one who is less financially well off. Okay, I'm going to... Can I get started already? I'm gonna make kind of a prediction about the story because I have a feeling that the mention of Scott being financially the least well off, I have the vibe that Scott might have something to do with what eventually will most likely be an issue in the park. There will be some kind of a motive from Scott to maybe not go through with the sale. Or this whole business here, I don't know. Maybe. I mean, but they already took the loan. It doesn't necessarily make sense now that I think about it. But I'll keep in mind, Scott does not have a lot of money. Yeah, Tyler said. We have the money for that. Ah, Mr. Moneybags, that mini dealership treating you good? I nudged him hard with my shoulder. Tyler stumbled but kept enough composure to push me back into the passing churro stall. Those 6 BMW dealerships are treating me very well. Well enough to serve as the sizable collateral we need, Brandon added. So, Charlotte ran up behind us and threw her arms around Tyler and Koji. Can we ride some rides? Are you kidding? Why do you think we're here? Tyler laughed. I'm just here for Mayhem Mountain, I said, clapping my hands and rubbing them together eagerly. Brandon threw up his hands. Alright, fine. I thought you guys would be interested in how your investment is coming along. Koji snorted. All we're interested in is the project ROI and, more importantly, which rides have passed safety inspection. Oh, Brandon stopped walking and tried to look annoyed, and failing that, he smiled. A little over half of them are rideable. Suddenly, everyone was talking at once. Is Steel Viper open? Yep, that one's on. What about Snapdragon? That's one good to go too. Renegade Falls? The water's not on. High Roller? Yes. Space Spin? Oh yeah. Power Tower? They're doing the inspection this whip. There was only one ride I really cared about. Mine and Brandon's favorite. What about Mayhem Mountain? Fuck yes! He answered to collective groans from the rest. Mayhem Mountain had always been our thing. The others had always been happy to ride High Roller and Snapdragon into exhaustion. Brandon and I always split off toward the end of the day to ride Mayhem Mountain into the twilight hours. Ugh, Charlotte shuddered. I hate that ride. It's boring as hell, Koji agreed. I helped design something similar for Disneyland Hong Kong. We put it in Fantasyland for fuck's sake. I don't know anything about Disneyland, but I assume that Fantasyland is going to be like the children's part of Disneyland. The part where the adult Disney fans don't really traverse. Hey, that ride is awesome. It's long and it goes upside down, I argued. Charlotte is even too scared to ride it. I'm not scared of that ride. It just gives me the creeps. Something about it just, I don't know, seems off. Alright, look. We'll start at the end of the park and work our way towards the back. That way we can ride every ride that's passed inspection, including Mayhem Mountain, Brandon said. And Snapdragon, Tyler added, and the others nodded excitedly. Yes, every ride. And of course we can ride them, you know, as many times as we want. The thing about the end of the park thing reminded me randomly of, there's this, long time ago I went to Legoland in Denmark with my dad and, his then girlfriend. We went to a Legoland and, before we went into the park, there was this, lady at the hotel's reception desk who gave us advice, saying something along the lines like, oh, by the way, everyone is going to do the thing where they go to the back of the place, and then they start coming back towards the doors. Don't do that, that is stupid. Instead, go to the center of the park, then go to the back of the park, and then come back to the beginning of the park. That way you can experience everything while there's not really a group there bothering you with long lines. And that fucking lady saved that vacation. We had no lines anywhere with that tactic thanks to her. She was a queen. Brilliant lady. Thank you so much, random Danish Legoland helper from a random hotel that had nothing to do with Legoland itself. Beautiful person. Thank you. Hell yes, brother. Koji high-fived Brandon, and we headed down the street towards Space Spin. Our progress through the park was blissfully slow. Everyone wanted to ride every ride multiple times, and one person always had to stay in the loading area to operate the ride. It only took an hour or two to forget that I was a fully grown 35-year-old man. Being back here, running through the lineways with my friends, arguing who got the first row of the first car, it was like being 12 years old again. Still, my eye was constantly drawn up over the buildings into the distance, to the back of the park where the high, gleaming rails of Mayhem Mountain shined in the unobscured sun, there would be no arguing who got front row on that coaster. It was me and Brandon. It was always me and Brandon. Charlotte, Tyler and Koji were the most like children, constantly running ahead and arguing over which ride to get on next, yelling back to ask Brandon if this one or that one had been cleared by the contractors. Brandon and I held back from the group a bit, discussing ideas and possible improvements for the park. Scott and Danny took up the rear of the group, quietly talking and lighting joints. When we arrived at the Enterprise, a simple ride that consisted of spinning cars on a circular track, I offered to flip the switch while the rest of the group rode to excess. The Enterprise always made me sick when we were kids. Brandon offered to stay on the platform with me to chat while everyone else rode the ride. I flipped the switch to turn the ride on, and as the car spun away from the loading area, the Enterprise's signage came into view. I sighed. All day I had been trying to ignore the bright graffiti sprayed all over the park, but the words painted over the signage of the Enterprise were impossible to ignore. Where did the missing kids go? Ooh! Ooh! Hold on, that's nice. Oh, that's really nice. That's a very nice way to use the first person perspective from the character by not including what they see in the text until now, and now saying I have been ignoring these things for a while, but I can't do it anymore. Bam. Lore. Story going forward. Mystery established. Love it. I love that type of writing. That's fucking awesome. Where did the missing kids go? They did mention earlier in the story that there were missing people or something around the area. Which was, well, it had something to do with the park, obviously. But yeah. That is nice. Also, the fact that they said, all day I had been trying to ignore the bright graffiti sprayed all over the park, but the words painted over the signage of the Enterprise were impossible to ignore. So there's been multiple different graffitis saying something about missing children, maybe even the same exact words in the park, up until this moment of the story. That's awesome. I really like the way they did that there. It's like these parts of the story that also give me kind of those like you kind of feel when I'm going through the story, because it's like adults reliving their childhood. I'm kind of feeling once again like I'm feeling that even though the characters are adults and they talk like adults and act like adults, because of like the relationships established in childhood and the fact that they're going back to the place where they used to meet as children, the characters feel like children at the park, even though they're adults, if you get what I mean. I really fucking love that. And the rest of the graffiti in the park was much the same. Most said things like, "Where are they? Runaway row. Find Ryan Kinski. And the missing are now dead." Similar sayings could be found in towns sprayed across a few dilapidated buildings in the industrial district. Brandon's eyes avoided the sign, but I could tell he was thinking about it too. Do you think the reason they shut this park down... I mean, do you see that as being an issue for park attendants? I asked as casually as I could. Brandon was quiet for a few moments as he waited for the ride to slow to a stop so he could flip the switch again. Nah, I don't think so. Low attendance issues aren't actually what shut the park down. They aren't? This surprised me. Nope. When we were negotiating the sale of the park, I was given access to the park's financials in the 80s. So they weren't operating at a loss. Oh, they were, but this park has operated in the red since opening day in the 70s. Half of their revenue was being fed back into something called county services, whatever that is. The bank couldn't tell me, and believe me, I tried to find out. County services, I mused. Yep, bizarre. And according to the paperwork, the park was closed because the owner didn't want to live here anymore. And he couldn't be bothered to wait for a decent offer on the property, so he just sold it to the bank for next to nothing. So he was a rich guy. I leaned back against the railing to stretch my back. And an idiot. Yeah, to an extreme in both cases. The owner of the park was Abel Bizet. Abel? Is that intentional? Or anything? Mayhaps, perhaps? Mayhaps, perhaps? Well, we'll see. Abel Bizet. Related to the French billionaire, I'm guessing? Brandon nodded. Michael Bizet. He built this park for his son in the 70s. Abel was never really what we could call a business inclined. I've always heard him described as simple. I can't believe the son of a billionaire lives in this area. Well, not anymore. He moved on decades ago. I shook my head in disbelief. Who would ever have thought that our simple little park was owned by a famous billionaire's son? Hell, I may have even sat next to him on rides and had no idea. You guys wanna go again? Brandon yelled to the others as the ride again came to a stop. I'm ready to move on, Coach yelled back. Anybody want to ride again? Nope, a chorus of voices replied. It was near 5 o'clock when we finally arrived at Mayhem Mountain. As the sun began to set, a familiar panic and urgency welled in the pit of my stomach. It took a moment for me to realize that we didn't have to leave when the park closed this time, because the park didn't close. We could stay until sun up if we wanted to. You see what I mean about like even though the characters are adults, it feels like we are kind of in the heads of children in the park. Like even the thought that you get like a panic from childhood, like oh my god, I have to get out of here soon. We have to get through all the things. That takes us that long and that takes us that long. I really like that. Maybe the one thing that it doesn't necessarily bother me that much, but so far it's been more about the main character that is being described when it comes to this experience of childhood, like kind of like childhood innocence again. Yeah, brings out the inner child, exactly. And considering that this seems to be about missing people, assuming, well, missing kids if I remember correctly from the graffiti, maybe your inner child coming out might not be the best thing in the world. By the way, I've never read the story, I'm reading it for the first time as well, but I'm just thinking out loud what I'm feeling like. Yeah, exactly, I really like that. As I eagerly approached the turnstile for Mayhem Mountain, Tyler spoke up behind me. Listen, can we run into the town and grab something to eat before we ride Mayhem? You really want to ride Mayhem after we eat? Asked Koji. Good point. There's only one loop, Danny rolled her eyes. 2, I said. Don't forget the inline roll. Yep, 2, Scott answered. Plus it's a 2-minute ride. If your food isn't sitting well, you got a long way till it's over. Look, I said, let's ride it a couple times and then we go eat. When we come back, we'll see how we feel. Everyone nodded and we started walking through the lineways up to the platform. When we reached the loading dock, I was excited to see our favorite green car sitting on the track. Sorry, I just looked at the camera and kind of realized how damn long my hair is nowadays. Look at that bad boy. Looking quite different than a few years ago. You can see on my YouTube channel when I had short hair. Front seat! Brandon and I yelled simultaneously as the train cars came into view, and everyone behind us groaned. I'm staying here, Charlotte said. I'll just work the launch pad thingy. Still scared after all these years, Char? Scott teased her. Char is an interesting name for Charlotte. Shut up, Burnout! Scott laughed and tousled her hair before running and jumping into the first car behind Brandon and I. Danny got in next to him and then Tyler and Koji took the second car. We pulled the shoulder restraints down and they locked in place. Sorry, can I still make sure that I remember correctly who was the one in the story who had the financial situation? There we go, Scott. Scott, the least well off of us 6. Okay, there we go. I just want to make sure that I remember correctly that Scott is the one who is the least well off financially. Scott laughed and tousled her hair before running and jumping in the first car behind Brandon and I. Danny got in next to him and then Tyler and Koji took the second car. We pulled the shoulder restraints down and they locked in place. "Ready?" Charlotte asked. "Yep," Brandon yelled back. "Send the car through." Charlotte pulled the lever and the brakes disengaged. As the car moved forward, I turned to Brandon. "Did we get the green car on purpose?" I yelled at him as the coaster clacked around the load platform and began the clattery climb up the first lift hill. "Yep, we sent cars through here all morning, but I made sure Rich knew to leave the green machine in the loading bay." "Awesome!" How old were these people again? Like, they must be like maybe mid-20s, late 20s, 30s. As the train climbed up the lift hill, I made no attempt to hide my utter glee. I looked out over the expansive park and I couldn't believe it was mine. Every track, every car, every turnstile, every screw, from the front gate to the overflow parking lot in the back. It was all ours. How I wished I could go back in time and tell a young me waiting in the 2-hour line for Mayhem Mountain, "One day you will own this place." And as we crested the hill and the train fell into the first drop, I realized I essentially had gone back in time. At least I was screaming like a 12-year-old, as was everyone else behind me. Yeah, we're going back into it again, what I was saying about like the people being like children in the park and being written as children in the park even though they are adults. We dipped into the first tester hill and then banked hard and up the second lift hill. We dropped from there, down into the vertical loop, banked around a set of gift ships, up briefly and then down a small hill into the inline roll. When we arrived back at the loading bay, we were all screaming and whooping. Charlotte didn't even have to ask, just smiled at us and sent us through again. Okay, it's been building up so much towards a Mayhem Mountain that now that they went in the first time and it was completely fine, I'm kind of like, my guard is going down, you know? We went twice more before we finally got off the ride. Koji walked over to check out the control panel while the rest of us taunted my sister. "You sure you don't want to go, Sha? It's awesome." "Nah, I'm good. I have no problem being the carny for this ride," she laughed. "Come on, Charlotte, just one time and we'll leave you alone," Tyler urged. No, 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 no. No way, not interested. I'll ride anything else though. Now I'm getting actually interested about Charlotte now that I'm thinking about it more. Charlotte says that the ride is boring, but from the description of the story, she's kind of like ridden other rides that don't seem too interesting, at least from the description. Like, I'm thinking she might have some other reasons to not go there. Man, I'm just concerned that they're gonna make her ride it and that's gonna be that. Yeah, well anyways. Random thing as a kind of like a short part between here. Have you guys ever been or have been going to a amusement park? Have you ever like heard anything bad happening there? Because I remember there was one year when I was a kid, like maybe 12 years old, like in this story actually. I was supposed to go to Power Park in Finland. We were planning our trip with my mom. My brother, me, and my mom were supposed to go there, but there was a year when a summer employee in the park died after like going to get someone's glove, some like kid's glove that someone had dropped, I believe it was. And for some reason they went to get the fallen glove when the machine was still going, and it hit her. But yeah, not the safest place. It's actually kind of interesting that we even want to go in places like that when I think about it. Sometimes it feels like the machines are so old anyways that you shouldn't be able to ride those. I've had experience like that in many places as well. Hey, do you guys know what Track B is? Koji asked. Track B? What do you mean? Brandon walked over to Koji at the control board and raised an eyebrow. That's weird. It's probably just the track they use to get the cars into the storage bay, Scott said with a shrug. No, Koji said. That's called a transfer track. Track B has got to be something else. Yeah, well, I've been on this ride enough times to know that there is no other track. Yep, Tyler agreed with me. He has. So, should we try it? Brandon tested. Fuck no, said Charlotte. If you don't know what track B is, that means the contractors don't know about it either, which means it hasn't been inspected in at least 20 years. That's suicide. Look, Koji said, if track B exists, then even the most incompetent of engineers would have found it during an inspection. And Rich cleared this entire ride, Brandon nodded. It's probably just a ride in reverse, we're good. Well, we're in, announced Scott from the other other side of the track, though Danny didn't look quite on board with the idea. Don't fucking do that. That is the dumbest idea ever, please don't. Are you kidding me? Yeah, I'm absolutely with Charlotte on this one. If there is no information about the inspection, then most likely there hasn't been an inspection. Well, someone is going to fucking die. Oh, this is gonna be horrible. I kinda got the more horrifying thought now, in the story. That, I've kind of been going in this story from the name and from the whole idea that this might be supernatural, and I just got the horrifying idea that there might be nothing supernatural about anything in Mayhem Mountain. And that is somehow a worse fate in my mind. Mark? Tyler asked. Hey, yeah, I guess I'm in. What's the worst that could happen? We get funneled into a repair bay? Alright, then I'm in too, Tyler said hesitantly. Koji shrugged. Here goes nothing. He flipped over the switch over to track B, and a moment later a loud metallic scraping some distance away filled the park. The sound lasted almost a minute. I studied the familiar silver roller coaster under the pink sky of the setting sun, but I saw no physical changes to the track. I looked over at Brandon and a shrug of his shoulders told me he didn't either. Shall we? Scott asked, gesturing to the train cars we'd just been disembarked. I gave Charlotte a questioning look, but she shook her head emphatically no. So it was just the six of us again. Man, Charlotte, you're a smart lady. You are an educated woman. Man, Charlotte, you should be running the damn business here. Good job, Charlotte. Continue this, yes. You're being very smart, please don't fuck it up now. In Charlotte we trust. It's only right you two take the bow of the ship. Tyler gave a mock salute. Oh, captains, my captains! I laughed and hopped into the right side of the front row. Brandon crawled into the seat next to me. Tyler and Koji got in behind us and Scott and Danny took the back. We pulled the shoulder bars down and they locked into place. Are you sure about this? Charlotte asked when everyone was settled. Danny said something from her place a few rows back, but all I heard was Brandon yelling, "Pull it!" Brandon, you're killing them all! You're killing them! No! Brandon! Another thing that I really quickly want to give credit here. I really enjoy how Rebecca writes descriptions of what's the word? Descriptions of senses, sensory interactions with the world or whatever. The loud metallic scraping, the sound that lasts almost a minute, and the silver roller coaster under the pink sky. I can really see how writing like this would really work for TV, for instance. It is almost like TV-esque. When I think about that, slowly coming and lasting almost a minute, just arriving at the place. Screeching and the appearance. I can see it as a picture in my head, like from a series. The brakes released and the train rolled away from the platform and into the twilight of dusk. The lights had lit up on the track while we'd been arguing, and the roller coaster looked absolutely beautiful. I was filled with awe and reverence at what this place truly meant to mean, and my friends. Meant to me and my friends. Sorry, it's just a miswriting again. It was a symbol of our youth and innocence and blissful ignorance of the world. It was our little bubble of happiness. The coaster again climbed the lift hill, and from the top, Brandon and I studied the track, but in those few seconds I saw no difference. Brandon looked over and shook my head at him. Brandon looked over and I shook my head at him disappointedly. By the time we reached the vertical loop halfway through the ride, it was clear to us there was no track B. But it was hard to be upset because I was still on Mayhem Mountain and still found it an impossible challenge not to smile. Before we actually continue with the story, how have you guys liked this one? I really enjoy how it's like taken its time to get to the horror of it. It's we're over the halfway point, I believe, which is I really enjoy that it's taken this long. Like, it's a very simple concept, but they build it up a lot so you actually really feel about the characters, you know? It's almost like one of those stories that I kinda wish that it was a longer story. Like, if it was like a 5-parter with every part as long as this whole story, it could even like be better at building up the characters, making us care more about them. Maybe build up on the relationships a bit more. Maybe have a pre-story about their time as children in there. Then again, if you had the pre-story, it would obviously take a lot of time. And aside from that, it could also kind of like miss the point of the story, because I feel like the point that we're only hearing what people think about their youth instead of seeing the youth itself. It might be a bit better for the story itself. Like, the youth is this distance. The youth is a distant thing that we experience in the park, but is otherwise a thing we can't reach in the story. We banked around the now brightly lit gift shops, up the small tester hill, and then back down to the inline roll. Except the inline roll was suddenly above us. We'd missed it. Instead, the track now descended into a large square hole in the ground behind the gift shop, and we were headed directly into it. Ooh, okay. Okay. Wait, hold on. Sorry, before we continue, I need to really quickly see what an inline roll is. Is it just like... Wait, inline roll... Oh, okay, okay. So the inline roll is kind of like when the track twists on itself, you know? So when you're going in a track like this and then it starts like turning like this and goes like around, that is the inline roll. Okay, sorry, I wasn't aware of that term. I was in too much shock to scream or even move. The black hole swallowed us in an instant and we descended into complete darkness. I felt a comfortable pressure leave my shoulders and realized that the shoulder bars had released. I gripped the front lip of the edge of my seat and heard the terrified screams of my friends behind me as the coaster suddenly spun into what felt like an inline roll. I was too scared to do anything but hold on for dear life, though some part of my brain registered that the G-forces of the roll probably would have been enough to keep me in my seat if I had let go. Probably. We came out of the inline roll and dropped again, hard. As the roller coaster dropped, the room suddenly lit up around us, and I saw the track below, arching up into a light tester hill. As we hit the bottom of the hill, the shoulder bars lowered mechanically. The car went over the small tester hill and then braked to start up another tall lift hill. I took my first breath since dropping through the ground and looked around, tuning out the screams of Danny and Tyler behind me. We were in what can be described as a cavernous room, and I only assumed it stretched to the farthest reaches of the park above. There were lots of vertical loops, high drops, and sharp curves that put the track perpendicular to the ground. Oh, Jesus Christ. Oh, that's... just like underground, just like in cave systems. Throughout the entire sub-level, building lamps dotted the wall every 30 feet. They put out a dreary yellow glow for as far as I could see, but many were burnt out and in parts the track disappeared into darkness. but in the dull yellow edges of the light, I saw something that registered in me a horror beyond death. Far away from us, in a section of shadowy track, I saw the high crest of a peak hill, which reached almost the ceiling of the giant room. And then the track just ended. Oh, that sucks. Oh, that sucks. Oh my god. Oh. Horror beyond death. High crest of a peak hill which reached almost the ceiling of the giant room, and then the track just ended. And oh my god. Oh fuck, I love this. Wait. Oh shit, this is so wait. So when they were going through the infinite darkness, you know, they had the bar. It was the bar went up and they held on there, and when they entered this room the bar went back down. It's to me that registers like the ride is almost mocking the people riding it at this point, or the people who made the ride, however you want to see it. It feels like the ride is mocking, like, alright, you can let go now and you can be out of this ride. You are about to be free. You can be free right now. If you just quickly leave it before we go into the room, you are free, you are fine. But the thing that is keeping you safe there is just like a prison cell instead. They could have left, they could have prevented this kind of early on, right before this room, but they couldn't. They didn't. Oh boy. Oh, this is gonna suck. This is gonna suck bad. Woo! Suddenly felt the horrible reality of the world outside my mind began to bleed in. Danny was screaming uncontrollably. Tyler was crying, bawling even. Koji was yelling at Brandon, who was looking straight at me, hitting my leg hard and repeating my name. As the cars continued to climb, I finally gave him my attention. I didn't want to be alone in the fear anymore. "What is this?" was all I could think of to say. "We have to get off this ride. We have to get off this ride, Mark. I fucking know, man. We're going to die. I fucking know, man," I yelled as we reached the top of the lift hill and dropped over the other side. I squeezed my eyes shut until I felt the shoulder bars once again release and bit my lip to keep from crying. I opened my eyes and choked as I watched the track ahead up us bent into a vertical loop. I reached up and tried to pull the shoulder bar down, but it was locked in place. Yeah, like, even that, like, every single time before it goes into the loop, it takes the the bar off. The ride just goes like, okay, this is the place where I can kill you now. I'm taking it off. Okay, next time the way I'm going to kill you is not the twist, it's that you have to stay on. So I assume that right after this this twist, the thing is gonna go right back down. I opened my eyes and choked as I watched the track ahead us bend up into a vertical loop. I reached up and tried to pull the shoulder bar down, but it was locked in place. Hang on to the seats!" I yelled as loud as I could. As we approached the loop, I felt the brakes engaging, slowing the car, and a tow cable catch beneath my feet. We were being pulled up through the loop, but too slowly for gravity to keep us in our seats. Oh, that sucks. That really sucks. As the train began to invert, I felt my feet rise from the floor of the car. My hair fell over my face and my butt left the seat. I closed my eyes and tried to block out the screams of terror from behind me. I concentrated on my death grip of the ledge of my seat as we rounded the track. We remained upside down for what felt like eternity. Finally, the pressure began to ease. My butt dropped to my seat and my feet the floor. The white noise subsided from my ears, and I heard Koji screaming, "Tyler! Fuck, he fell out! Fuck, he fell, he's dead, man, he's dead!" "He hit the track down there," Brandon yelled at me, wide-eyed and crazy looking. I was finally seeing the Brandon from my youth. The shoulder bars descended again, this time locking in tighter. I love it. I love how menacing of a being the ride has become here. Like, every movement feels so intentional. Like, was this a plan from the ride? Or was this just like is this a thing that someone planned, or is this just a thing that's happened? We came out of loop and sped up and down several tester hills. I tried to study the track ahead of us as we went through the safer parts. I thought I saw water reflecting off the metal rail somewhere in the distance. Brandon sobbed in his seat. Mark, what are we gonna do? I don't wanna die, man. I don't wanna fucking die. I don't know. I don't know what to do. I'm sorry. I'm fucking scared too. I answered him. We banked around the corner of the room, and the shrouded bars released again. This time we dove into a curve that put the left side of the train parallel to the ground, and it was a long drop. I gripped the edge of the seat tightly as before, but this time I kept my eyes open and was able to catch Brandon as he began to slip out of his seat. Ugh. Oh, curve that pulled the left side of the train parallel to the ground. Oh, okay, so it's like going in like this. Like if this is the seat here, it's going like this now. Thankfully I already hate roller coasters, otherwise I could never ride one again after this story. I love roller coasters, personally, and I've talked to my partner about maybe going to a amusement park at some point, and I've talked to one of my other friends that I really want to go to Linnanmäki at some point. I am starting to feel scared. Like, that's the thing, like, I don't think in the adrenaline you kind of get to think about how dangerous rides actually are there. Like, you hear stories, but you don't think they would happen to you, because in general, especially like in places that have like strict laws, in the strict laws, it's the rides are generally very safe. But then you see those moments and you realize they aren't. Fuck it, another story time. I just remembered. I remember once that I went to Power Park. I was going there, maybe I was like 14 maybe? We tried to go that one year, but we couldn't when someone died. So, in 1 year we went to Power Park, and I went to this machine that's had like, what do you call them? It was kind of like a machine that, it rolls around, it rotates, and it has these chains on it. And the chains pretty much link to these benches that almost look like those garden benches. Okay, never mind, not garden benches. Have you seen those plastic benches that children like sit at like toy tables? Like if you have a tiny table, you have those red and blue like plastic chairs. Wait, let me find a picture. Fuck it. Yeah, like these ones. Okay. So like these ones, these chairs. It had kind of like those kind of chairs that are attached to like chains, or at least made from similar material. They're attached to chains, and the machine starts to rotate, and then the chairs, like by G-force, just like or by like fucking laws of physics, whatever, they kind of like start flying more and more to the side, so you're like in a like maybe like a 45-degree angle, maybe a bit more, while you're riding those things. Here comes the problem. In the chair, let me actually open the image better so we can actually take a look at it. In the chair, when I was going at the amusement park, when I was at the amusement park, the safety belt of the chairs was pretty much at like this part here. So it was like, it keeps you safe if you hold on to it, or if you can hold on to it. But it wasn't like holding your legs or anything. It was just like, there was maybe like a 10 centimeter or 7 centimeter, space of emptiness from me and the chair, or me and the the belt. So, because of the material of the bench, and because of the clothes that I was wearing, I felt like I was starting to slide. So I started feeling like I was sliding from the chair, and if I started sliding too fast from it, I could slide under the safety belt of the ride, just from this very, very slippery material of the chair. So if I was wearing like more slippery pants, I am almost sure that at some point I could have started just like sliding under from like maybe like, I don't know, 30 meters in the air. Maybe more. So anyways, if anyone wants to know more reasons to avoid at least certain machines in amusement parks, there you go. Oh, I'm so sorry, that was important to me. By the time the train righted itself, I couldn't tell who'd been lost. Most of the screaming behind me had turned to loud sobbing or silence. The shoulder bars didn't re-engage and I felt the car's brakes slow the train down again. I didn't have to loop to know what was coming next. It was another inverted loop. This one was tall and large and I could tell we'd be upside down for longer. Someone behind me began screaming again. Danny, I think, as I tried to take measured breaths and position my hurting hands back under the lip of the seat. Brandon did the exact same and looked over at me as the car started up the loop with tears streaming down his face. Awful. Awful terrible. Awful terrible. I don't wanna die here, man. I shook my head back at him because I could think of nothing to say. I felt tears leave my own eyes as we reached the tipping point of the loop and my feet again left the floor. Before we were even completely upside down, I felt my back begin to slip down the seat. I thought if I'd lose my grip, I could try to grab for the shoulder bars when I fell out the car. That is exactly the feeling that I got in the ride. Oh my fucking god. Yes. Yes, that is exactly what I was talking about when I was mentioning the fucking garden ass seat. The garden seat ass thing. Before we were in completely upside, I felt my back begin to slide down the seat. Yeah, that is exactly what happened. What felt like was gonna happen to me in that one ride. Oh, that is uncomfortable. Oh, that is. Oh, it is about so. Oh, such a little thing is keeping us alive in those fucking places. The car suddenly stopped and I opened my eyes to see we were completely inverted. I grunted loudly at the pain and immense effort it was taking to keep my grip on the seat. The car started to move again slowly and I heard Brandon say something to me. I looked over at him just before he slid out of the car. 1 second he was there, next to me, and the next he was falling away from the car. I saw Brandon try to grab the shoulder bar on the way out, but we couldn't keep his grip on it. I watched him fall and I saw him break his back on the track below and he stopped moving. I stared down at him as the car continued to move slowly around the loop and he stared back up at me, dead or dying. By the time the car hit him on the way out of the loop, he was completely gone. Holy fucking shit. Okay, now I understood what the loop was like. Okay, yeah. So the loop was like around, he fell down on the track and the car went right over him once his back was already broken. Gee, that is so brutal. That is intensely brutal. Oh my god. The shoulder bars re-engaged and we went through a dreadfully long period when nothing happened. We were secured in our seats by the restraints as the coaster spent what felt like several minutes racing over hills, banks, curves, even an inline roll. Man! Sorry. I actually have to take a break about that. Like, that is the first time in the story. We've heard, like, people falling, and we've heard people's reactions to falling, but this was, like, the first time in the story that is almost over that we actually had the experience of, someone just dying, experiencing it through the main character's eyes. From Mark's eyes. Mark, right? Just, like, straight up seeing what happens. So his brake is back on the track below and stopped moving. By the time the car hits him on the way out of the loop, he was completely gone. Oh my fucking god. Oh Jesus. Alright. That's rough. Yeah. Yeah, Rebecca really does like to write stuff like this. Oh boy. Without the adrenaline pumping through my veins, I felt the shock begin to wear off. It was replaced by a panic and a fear unlike I'd ever experienced, and I decided that was the point of this section of track, to build and facilitate an unbearable fear. I felt the brakes engage finally and I looked ahead to find the loop we were surely entering, but there was none. We were high, almost the top of the ceiling, and we slowed to a stop on a straightaway. Directly ahead was a drop, and at the bottom of the hill, a series of 4 different tracks, with a transfer stack just before they split off. Each track had 5 or so feet of color, red, orange, green and blue, before racing off in different directions. I felt an urgent shaking of my shoulder and turned around to hear what Koji was saying. Which track are we connected to? I looked at the transfer stack. Green. Where does green go? It was hard to hear him over the sound of Danny sobbing from the second car. I tried to trace the green track through the building, constantly losing it and finding it again. I wasn't sure, but it seemed to end at the lift hill I'd seen earlier. The hill with no track at the top. Also another thing, god, sorry, I keep pausing, but that's the whole point, obviously. I also really like how, when you go and read the story, they say this thing like, that was the point of this section of track, to build and facilitate an unbearable fear. I'm feeling like, obviously, a roller coaster is often used as a way to describe a story, like the way a story, like, builds up, going up a roller coaster, and then just like rushing down to get like to the climax of the story and stuff like that. But I feel like the story is also doing that with the movement of the, well, it's doing it literally, and it's doing it like in the storytelling, you could say, and the way that it's been written. Like when you get to the roles, like those roles like around, those things get like intensely confusing, and like you don't really see what's happening. You're only experiencing some sounds from behind. You don't really know who died or what happened. So they use the train car's movements, or the car's movements in the story in like many different ways, not just going up and going down, but like confusing twists and turns for the people's experience in the ride as well. I really enjoy that. It ends at that hill. I yelled back at him and pointed. Then he cried louder. Fuck! While we were stopped, I rubbed my hurting hands together. As I looked down at them, I noticed something new in the car. At some point, a small, blinking panel had flipped over in the wall at the front of the car. It had 4 colored buttons and an old analog timer. The timer was so old and damaged that though the numbers were clearly changing, I couldn't see how long we had. We get to choose, I said and explained what I was looking at. Can you see which track ends where? Koji asked. I followed all the tracks as best I could, but the rails circled and slid in between each other. It was hard to tell which track went where. I think the blue track ends in that big pool in the corner, the red tracks end in a wall, and the orange one just drops into a hole in the floor like the one we came down here through, I think. There's no way out, dude, said Scott from the second car. His voice was unsettlingly calm. They're just telling us how we're going to die. We can still find a way out of this, I answered quietly, more to myself than him. Choose the pool, Scott said, and I could hear the tears in his voice. I've heard drowning isn't an awful death. I've heard it's calming at the end. Jesus Christ, that's oh, that discussion in this situation. God damn it. I want to say my theory here really quickly. I think that the thing they should choose, or the thing that they choose that is survival, is the green car. I think it's the green car because, well, like in earlier stories, they always pick the green car, or the green track. They always chose green with Brandon and Mark. Yeah, I believe that is the right thing to do, even though it looks like a certain death. No, choose the hole in the floor, said Koji. It's possible it drops down into another cavern like this. There might be more track, which means more time to figure out how to live. You don't think we'd be the first to choose that option, do you? Scott asked him. And no one that went missing ever came back. There's just more death in the hole. I don't want to die like this, Koji begged. And at least it's a chance. Danny was still whimpering in the back and offered no suggestion. It seemed that the decision was up to me, and I had to make it fast. I knew I didn't want to die by dropping off the track. I didn't want to drown. Perhaps the quickest death was the wall. More than likely we would all be killed instantly. Less suffering, less time to think about our fates. But the truth was, I wasn't entirely positive which track ended where. It was all educated guesswork and my time was up. The orange. Let's go down to the second floor, if there is one. Scott and Danny said nothing and Koji choked out the last words I'd ever hear. Scott and Danny said nothing and Koji choked out the last words I'd ever hear him say. Push it before it chooses for us. Ah! Oh, that sucks. That sucks so bad. Fuck. Ah, the last word I'd ever hear him say. What does it mean? Before I could think about it any longer, I pushed the orange button and committed us to whatever death it led to. We heard the metallic scraping of the track transferring below. Once the orange track was securely connected, the brakes on the car released and the train rolled slowly toward the drop. Danny started screaming again. As we dropped down the hill, I got a better view of the orange track. There was a vertical loop ahead that didn't look as high as the others we'd been through. In fact, it looked like there was a chance the fall wouldn't kill us. If it wasn't an optical illusion and if the shoulder bars disengaged for that loop, we might have a shot at living through this. I yelled back to everyone behind me. Let yourself fall out of this loop, the one up there. No one responded to me, which didn't matter because I didn't think I'd had the courage to let go of the seat anyways. We raced along the track, in and out of banks and curves. At one point we passed along the pool and I looked down. Below the water's surface, the track ended above an even deeper pool. I could see the shadows of several coaster cars at the very bottom. I suddenly felt the brakes engaged and realized we were coming to the loop. I tested the shoulder bar by pushing up on it, but it stayed locked. I was somewhat relieved in that moment to know I wouldn't have to make the decision to fall out now or gamble on the orange track. But suddenly, the restraints released. Oh man. Oh man. Oh man. Is there a chance? Ah! As we started up the loop, I gripped the lip of the seat tightly and turned my head back to look down. It looked like we were very high, and I only hoped the ground was the loosely packed dirt that it looked like. I had to choose now, the fall or the hole. I choose the fall. As I began to slide up the seat, I yelled at the others to let go and fall out of the car, and then I closed my eyes and let go. I felt my head crack the shoulder bar on the way out. Oh! Oh! It wasn't like a slow motion fall. It was over before I realized that I'd actually let go. One moment I felt an intense pain as my head hit the bar, and in the same moment I realized I was on the ground. I hadn't even had the time to realize the possibility of hitting the track below or get run over by the cars. I opened my eyes in time to watch the cars speed over the track above me. The pain didn't hit me all at once. I had one long, blissful second before I felt it, and then I was in agony. I'd hoped my body was so in shock that I wouldn't feel much of the pain, but I felt it all. I concentrated on keeping my eyes open and trying to catalog the damage. There was blood on my clothes, but I didn't know what part of my body it was coming from. I heard screaming as well, but I didn't know if it was in my head or coming from my friends as they approached the end. I didn't want to move. Didn't think it was safe to move, but I knew I had to. If only to pull out my phone. With trembling fingers I pulled the thing from my pocket and brought it to my face, trying to focus on the screen, but it was shattered and refused to even turn on. I threw it away from me and then realized the silence. The ride had ended. With a great amount of effort, I rolled over onto my stomach and dragged my broken body across the ground towards where I thought I'd remembered seeing the hole. I crawled for what seemed like hours, and maybe it was. Sometimes I tried to stand or even kneel, but the pain in my back and ribs was too potent. Too great. Why did I say that? I passed out several times from shock and pain, but eventually I made it to where the track disappeared into the ground. I pulled myself to the edge and looked down inside the hole. The track ended just below the surface. Ooh, ooh, oh no. It was just a fucking direct crash. It was a natural shaft with walls made of rock. I didn't know how deep it went and I didn't want to. It was a fate I'd only narrowly escaped. But then I thought my friends were down there and maybe someone survived. Koji? My voice echoed loudly down the shaft. No answer. Scott? Nothing. I reached for a nearby screw and dropped it down the hole. It took half a minute to land, and when it did, it was with a tink as it hit something metal. The small sound echoed up the shafts and out into the cavernous room, and I realized this place was built with acoustics in mind. I rolled over onto my back and studied everything I could see from where I was, staying off my body's desire to pass out again. I felt nothing but numbness when I finally saw what I was looking for. A long panoramic window in the forewall. I knew what track B was for, and I finally let myself slip away into the darkness. What? Panoramic window in the wall. Is this like a torture chamber? Is this like a fucking Squid Game before Squid Game? Just like people seeing like folks suffer. They were children. The people who were lost here like partially were fucking children. And they were, oh no, I just got it. Oh no. Wait. Sorry. The park had been running red for the whole time, but it was still going. For some reason, even though the official, like, paperwork said that the park was failing financially, they could keep it up. They did it by doing, like, pretty much like a... Like a torture chamber for people to look at. That's how they kept the park rolling this entire time. By having, like, under the whole place. Man! Man, that sucks! Oh, that's horrifying. Just the realization of seeing the window and realizing what it means. Oh, fuck. Fuck, that's a nice one. So it isn't supernatural in any way. The cart isn't doing anything. The park isn't doing anything. This is a place for presumably rich people to watch people die. This is like a torture porn set that they're living in. Oh, that's nice. That's so nice. Oh, that's nasty. Oh, I love that. I really like that. I remember very little of my rescue. There were lots of people in uniform and my sister yelling, and pain. Lots of pain. I was in and out on the way to the hospital, but I remember I passed through the room behind the window at some point. And from my stretcher, through the chaos, I saw in that room a single chair facing the window. It was covered in a deep layer of dust. Ah. I mean, thank God the sister stayed back. But you also sent them down track B. Oh, that's awesome. I was never visited by anyone official, let alone asked to give a statement. Charlotte stayed by my side at the hospital for months while I recovered. She wouldn't say much about that day, although she finally did tell me something. She said that they wouldn't let her ride with me to the hospital, and that someone offered her a ride. On that drive, she'd been spoken to by two people that had convinced her to never speak of what had happened and to convince me of the same. Whatever they threatened her with had her begging me to agree, and I did, at the time. I am still to this day learning to walk without aid. I never saw Mayhem Mountain again. The loan defaulted and Adventure Valley was bought up by an unknown LLC which bulldozed it and built a block of apartments over the top. They are still empty to this day. I don't like the dark anymore. It reminds me of the horror my friends experienced as they looked down and saw the track end before they disappeared into that hole. I try not to think what they must have felt as they fell down the shaft in complete darkness, strapped to a roller coaster, waiting for the terrible end. I wish I'd chosen the pool, if only to save them from that fate. As for the billionaire's son, he was only simple in the fact that he was a man of simple taste, and he still is. I looked him up once, only a few years ago. He owns several amusement parks now, all sizable but small enough to be popular only in their specific regions. In fact, one is not very far from where I live now. I've thought about going many times, just to check, just to see, but then I realized that I probably didn't need to search all the rides in the park to know. Because I know that somewhere in that park, some ride in some corner has a track B. And there we go! That was Mayhem Mountain by Rebecca Klingel, aka CK Walker. Oh, that was... Ah! Alright, let me turn the music off. Oh my god, what a story. Oh, what a story. I understand completely why Rebecca considers this her favorite story. Just... What a fucking experience. That, the ending of, like, the way he looked up. A body broken, barely living. Fucking looking up and seeing the window. And being like, now I realize what track B was. Ah! And the singular chair as well. Singular dust chair. That is Sony. That was a ride. Hey, it was a ride. No, I really enjoyed that immensely. That was very, very well written. You can see like slight like miswritings or whatever, like mistakes in the text. That's fine. Like it's not a big deal. It's written by someone who at the time was just getting started with stories. It is completely understandable and fine. Let me actually check real quick. When did Rebecca start writing? Wait, there's no way that Borrasca is the first one that she wrote. There's no way, right? Never mind. I found her first story, actually. I believe that is the first one, if I could just find it here. Yeah, okay. Her first story was called Betsy the Doll, and that was like 11 years ago. She has a bunch of stories in NoSleep. That was exciting. That was so exciting. That was a good read. Thank you for reading it to us. Yeah, thank you for being here. This was very, very fun. Like I said, once again, if anyone wants to read the story that we've been reading now, there's Mayhem Mountain's link. And also her website. This was definitely one of the shorter stories that I'm about to read, and I will later read some longer ones as well in the future. But let's see here. There we go. So you can see here, as you can see, this is pretty much like Rebecca's homepage. It has all the information about like audio adaptations of her stories, arts and comics inspired by her work, I believe, books that you can buy from her, which obviously if you want to read the stories in a text form in books, you can also buy those. I think this was a good length with the breaks. Yeah, I think so too. In the future, if we get more folks here, I feel like you could also, it would be easier to have a, like a more discussion about the work itself. Does anyone have anything they want to say about the story, by the way? If you have any specific comments about parts in the story or things that you liked or stuff like that, then please share. Maybe the one thing that I kinda... Like I get that it was pretty much just to like put some meat on the characters. I feel like maybe there could have been a bit more points between the characters, or more points with saying the things about the characters that we say that would affect their interactions and stuff like that. Like it was just kind of mentioned that Charlotte and Danielle, there we go. Danielle and Charlotte, they were kind of just like mentioned that they were like friends who, or they were like from the same school, but they weren't really friends. Like I guess Danny was like a bully or something. They didn't really do anything with that in the story. Like it was just a random thing to mention. And I'm not saying this as a, if the story was a bit longer, I wouldn't necessarily mind, and if it had an example of like interactions, like that it would affect the characters' decisions in the story, for instance, I feel like that would have been pretty neat. Aside from that, like Yeah, I also feel like maybe some of the characters in the story had less personality. Like the biggest ones were definitely like Brandon, Mark, and Charlotte. Those three were like the big three characters with personalities. And then we kind of had the rest of the people who, like Koji. Like Koji didn't really seem to do much in the story, except eventually die. That might be like the biggest minus was just maybe the characterization here. It's not a big issue, definitely. Like, it's a very short story, so if you only write a short story, it's very understandable that not every character is like a, I don't know, like Ned Stark or something. Like, obviously, that not every single character is going to be like written like very specifically or anything like that. Like, if I compare this story to like other things I've heard from Rebecca and stuff that she's written, I can definitely see that she's improved a bunch in that part, and it might have something to do, obviously, with the length of the stories as well. The one thing that I did notice here when I was talking, it's very, very straining to the voice. You might hear my voice right now. No, but it's a bit straining for the voice. Maybe in the future, if anyone wants to join in, I might also have, like, other people reading at some point. Obviously, I want to work more on this to get to that point, but, yeah, man, I had so much fun with this story. I had so much fun, like, trying to analyze it as much as possible. I feel like the high parts of the story were definitely the introduction. I feel like the introduction really did a good job, like, working with the characters. Like, giving kind of, like, reasoning. Maybe a bit clunky with the way they bought the place and stuff like that, but not too much. Oh, 20 years. It took them 20 years, so at this point they were like 30-somethings. 32 or 34 maybe. Aside from that, like obvious high point, whenever they went on track B, the entire experience of going down track B was really, really horrifying. I really enjoyed how, like, there were the parts where they were going through the twists and turns, and they didn't really understand what was happening. Oh, here, this one. Yeah, Koji. He fell out. Fuck, he fell. He's dead, man. He's dead. Hit the track down there, yeah. There were like some of these parts that really, 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 really hit that feeling of like you don't really know what specifically maybe happened until at some point. Koji screaming. God damn it, that was nice. Ooh. But I had a lot of fun here. This was a very, very exciting stream. I really want to do this again. This was kind of, like I said at the beginning of the stream, a beta version or an alpha version of Nachorror. I want to work more on this and make it a better experience in the future. Maybe if I, at some point, can get a better mic, because the mic that I'm currently using is not necessarily the best one for stuff like this. I could also work on the visuals of it. Obviously, when we look at this, it's not very visually impressing, is it? I was mainly the aim and the end goal, or the aim that I had with this, was just to have the bare minimums for the start and see how I enjoy it, and then in the future work more on this. Anyways, I'm gonna end the stream now. Thank you guys so much for the first episode of Nachorror. Next week I'm going to have the second one. I believe the one that I'm gonna be going is for Don't Listen to the Music of DJ Eric Zan. That's one I've had in the back burner for a while. And I'll work on getting news stories as well. Send messages, ask people, stuff like that. Thank you so much for the stream, and see you in the next episode next week of Nachorror, or other streams that I might have between here. Goodbye, fellas. Follow the Discord to see more information about schedules soon.